only $5 per play. Plus, try the new Double Play for a second chance to win for only $3. Level up your luck with the bigger jackpots, bigger excitement, and the more chances to win. Grab your Lucky Pick ticket today. Available at the Caribbean Lottery agents and the lottery vending machines island-wide. Must be 21 years and older. Please play responsibly.
On Friday, July 24th at 8 p.m., the NEDAX Cultural Complex comes alive for the National Bank Miss Culture Swimwear and Mystical Contest. Who will capture the coveted titles? Come on out and support your favorite contestants and participants as they battle for the crowns. Our heritage.
The thing that sets us apart. The thing that sets us apart. Who we are. 'Cause the rhythm of life keeps bumping. Together going strong. No matter what, we keep this flowing. Before we will go all in. Our hands up in the sky. Celebrating. Come let your rhythm flow.
Big ship sailing on the ocean.
The only big ship ride for July takes place this coming Sunday 19th when the Grand Masters Band presents Big Ship Sailing on the Ocean on board Prince Infante. Boarding starts at 5 p.m. and the big ship sails off at 6. On board to keep you entertained will be DJ Terra, DJ Kotai, and the undisputed best.
This cover tuition, school fees, books, uniforms, and school supplies. Plus, one lucky winner will win $2,000 cash when they take a Quartz Ready Cash back to school loan of $20 easy with a Quartz Ready Cash loan. Quartz Ready Cash, ready when you are. Offer ends August 25th, 2026. Conditions apply.
People's choice. Yeah. For the people. By the people. By the people. By the people. Every Tuesday. The choice of the people leading the way. For the people. By the people. By the people. By the people. Loud and clear. The people's choice every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Freedom FM is here.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of The People's Choice right here on Freedom FM. It's actually 11:08. So thank you for joining us and as we continue to examine the issues shaping the future of St. Kitts and Nevis. Today we turn our attention to one of the most important pillars of our economy, the Citizenship by Investment Program. For more than 4 decades, the CBI program has played a significant role in national development, funding critical projects, supporting economic growth, and influencing the country's fiscal position. Our guest today is once again former Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and political leader of the People's Labour Party, the Honourable Dr. Timothy Harris. Today, we'll take a comprehensive look at the program from the challenges he inherited in 2015 to reforms that followed, management of CBI revenues, and some of the program's most debated decisions. Welcome back, Dr. Harris. How are you?
Thank you. I am fine and good to be on Freedom once again. I want to thank you for being an incredible host. I have had lots of commendations regarding the program coming from both near and far, and so I want to pass them on to you because without your incredible professionalism and experience, I believe the wave reviews that we have been receiving would not have been possible. So thank you.
Thank you so much for those kind words. So, Dr. Harris, the time usually goes by very quickly, so let's try to get into it because it's a very important topic today. So, when your administration took office in February of 2015, what was the state of the Citizenship by Investment Program at that time?
Well, at the time in 2015, the CBI program had lost the confidence of the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis and the confidence of the international community. By 2015, our program had become a sanctioned program. By that it means the two most important countries in the Americas, to wit the United States of America and Canada, had taken significant, regretful action against our CBI program. First, in May of 2014, the United States Treasury Department issued a significant advisory cautioning its financial institutions and financial institutions globally from participating in our program. In other words, it was a call to exercise increased vetting of our program. The document that was issued was the FinCEN, I want to get a number, I'd written it down here, May 2014, the Financial Crime Enforcement Network had issued this particular advisory in FIN 2014-8004. And as I said, it warned that the government of the United States of America had lost confidence in the reports that it was receiving from the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and it believed that illicit actors were participating in our program, and our program then had become a shield by which criminal elements were able to get access to visas to the United States, and of course, untold damage could have been done. And then, if that was not bad enough, it worsened in November of 2014, when the Canadian government, a government with which we had long enjoyed special relationship, which was expressed in part to the visa-free access, also took the drastic decision of basically revoking our visa-free access. It created a lot of pain for many people. Some of our citizens were in transit in the USA, and they suddenly could not travel to Canada again. And so there was a lot of wailing and nagging of teeth, if you will, over these significant developments. They were not just hurtful to our citizens, but they brought a pause, and it brought a scare to those who had hitherto preferred St. Kitts and Nevis as the chosen country in which to engage in citizenship investment, because they were no longer certain how far and for how long the scale of investigation that the U.S. government had mounted would have continued. So there was a huge uncertainty, and always uncertainty is bad for market, and it affects persons in adverse ways. So that was the program that we had inherited. The program then had become a pariah. The market was running scarce and scared in relation to its interest in our program. Our task then was really to rebuild that confidence with our international partners, rebuild our confidence and trust in the respective markets. And that was the primary engagement of the government when we got there in 2015. How can we rebuild this bigger and better than before?
Okay, so your administration sets about rebuilding the program, but before we get there, I want you to touch a little bit on the impact to the economy, because you spoke about reputational damage. How did that impact the regular economy, the economy on the ground that people actually felt?
Well, the impacts would have come post the issuance both in May and in November. And it was calamitous in that we had seen a dramatic reduction in applications coming into the program. There's a time lag, but we witnessed that as a result of this. And what that meant, that even investor confidence, those who were here building, they came to meeting with us. They were wondering whether they should continue with the particular projects in which they had been engaged or had made commitments, because no one knew what would happen. The truth is, persons who invest in our program, by and large, are not investing to come to live. Less than half of 1% of those who have obtained investor citizenship, so to speak, have never come here and perhaps have not made a commitment to come here. They were needing the passport to get ease of access to certain countries, largely European countries, the USA and Canada. And that is why the Canada whammy, the double whammy that came in November, was so hurtful for the program, because this is it. They wanted the passport to go to Canada, go to Europe, go to the United States of America. So why should I invest again? If I wanted my child to go to Canada and get access to a high-quality education, if I wanted there to be my second home, that was no longer available. And so the enthusiasm, the demand for our product basically declined significantly, and the market, as I said, became frightened of its participation. The Financial Crime Agency Network that basically issued the advisory again, just by the very act that the most powerful country in the world would take the time to provide a notice with regard to our program, would have helped send, as it were, a scare to the international community and those who wanted to participate in our program. So the effects of this really would have been seen in 25 with the reduction in the demand, and in 26 to some extent, you were seeing that the market was no longer getting the appreciable quantities of inquiries of persons buying our product as had hitherto been the case. And I just want, just for clarity, to say it was the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network that issued this advisory to alert financial institutions that certain foreign individuals are abusing the Citizenship by Investment Program sponsored by the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It went on further. St. Kitts and Nevis passports for the purpose of engaging in illicit financial activity. Banks then and intermediaries became seriously concerned. And then it said in part, while the St. Kitts and Nevis government had publicly pledged to improve these controls, FinCEN believes that they remain ineffective. In other words, they didn't trust the outgoing government's word. For example, in 2020, the St. Kitts and Nevis government announced that all Iranian nationals were suspended from participating in the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Program. Despite this public assurance, FinCEN believes that Iranian nationals continue to obtain passport issued through the program. And as a result of these lax controls, illicit actors, including individuals intending to use this secondary citizenship to evade sanctions, can obtain our passport with ease. This was a damning indictment, really, because, as I said, this is coming from a superpower. This is coming from the most important, economically, military, and otherwise, country in the world. And it casts a shadow over our program and the integrity of the process. So when I say we had to rebuild, you could see as a result of this blow, this was a major setback. And we had to engage in high-level diplomacy. We had to engage in a lot of meetings and subtle business as a country that had brought and introduced the CBI program to the rest of the world.
So you engaged in diplomacy, but what concrete steps did you take to rebuild the program and rebuild the trust with our partners?
Yes. Well, the diplomacy was part of it. We went, for example, to the UK. We met with at least 2 ministers there, myself and the Attorney General, and we spoke to them. And they asked us, for example, why shouldn't we follow the steps of the United States of America and also revoke the visa-free access? We said, we are a new government, give us some time. We are committed to a new way, a better way, and we will put this program in a new direction, better for us, sensitive to your security and other concerns, because we want to be a responsible partner. When we had engagements with the U.S. Treasury Department, we sent the same message, that the situation was redeemable. The fact that we were new and we had opposed strenuously some of the things that were happening in the program, I think helped in building confidence. But one meeting is not enough. And one of the things that we had to follow up very quickly, we found that IPSA, which was an international service provider, well, service provider is not the proper description, but it was a firm involved in providing due diligence, risk assessment services to countries, to international entities. It had done an evaluation of our program, and it had produced about 22 recommendations. Not one of them had been followed. So one of the first steps at confidence building was for us to re-engage IPSA. And we said to our international partners, we will, because they asked, where are you on these? We said, we will start immediately. We engaged them, we brought them back in, one of their high officials in whom they had trust and credibility to help us in the implementation of these 20-plus recommendations. And that helped take us to new places. We had change in the administrative structure, better segregation of duties, so there was no overlapping. We had a system that allowed us 24/7 engagement, so we knew each time an application was being submitted. We set up new controls, by and large, at our own CBI program. We had meetings with those who had been engaged, both as developers, service providers, etc., and we came to a consensus about the need for the reform, the nature of these reforms, and the justification. We went about again because you had to go now and sell anew, that you were still in the market, that people could still have hope that they will not lose and there will be no cascading of the penalties imposed upon us. So we were in the UAE, attending international conferences, putting our case to the people there, those who are interested basically in investor citizenship program. And we won a lot of confidence, because we were being forthright. Yes, this had happened, we couldn't deny it. Yes, it was serious, but that we had the ears of those countries that matter, and they were generally supportive of the pathway that we had outlined. And what was left for us was to continue on that pathway. So very regularly, we were in communication with the U.S., both State Department and the Department of Treasury. We were speaking to people. We were alerting them what had become new, how the reforms were progressing. And we were inviting them, because we were an open book, come see what we have done. And if you have ideas for further improvement, we will do so. We take certain steps to ensure that those countries like Iran were excluded and publicly made persons aware that Iranian citizens could not participate. They were prohibited from participating in our CBI. Because citizens from North Korea also, and Afghanistan, which had become a problematic country, all those citizens were excluded. And so we were building confidence, because in the excerpt that I read, you heard that they made reference to Iran. Iran had become part of the negative conversation. You might have recalled that there was a Moghadam, and he had gone to Canada, and he had demanded, according to reports to the Prime Minister. Well, people know that ain't how business is done properly. And all of these things, I think, led to the serious concerns where the country's security were being breached as a result of the negligence and the refusal of the outgoing regime then to accord to good practices. So these were just a few of the things that we did: clean up internally, reform the system, brought in an enlarged staff so that there could be proper segregation of duties. We could get information out rapidly to the stakeholders about what we met. And a significant element of the reform, and again it was part of the 20-plus recommendation of IPSA, was for the government to revoke 15,000 passports that were issued without the country of birth field. And that was shocking. Why would any government, any sensible government, take out that field? That is the space in which the country of the particular applicant, the country of birth, would be placed. And that gave credence to the thinking that there was a mysterious and illicit agenda at foot, because it was international practice that even if you have dual citizenship, people will know your place of birth. And the government could not explain why they had moved to do that.
Dr. Harris, were there any difficult decisions that had to be made in order to safeguard the program, even if those decisions were unpopular at the time?
Well, yes. The last thing I mentioned was the recall of 15,000 passports. That was a major inconvenience to those who held them, because they had paid for them. They were issued by a legitimate authority at a particular moment in time. And then we were told, we were giving you a specific deadline by which you must return them to the government as government property, and then you can reapply, as it were, to have a new and proper passport issued. That led to issues of confidence in the program again, because I thought I have a good product. You gave it to me. You tell me it was worthy, and now I am being punished for the negligence of the government of the day. And so that was one of the tough decisions we had to make. We decided to open up our systems. That is not something one would normally do, but we had to show proof that we were confident that had people sent in their technocrats to look at our system, they would find a system that was working well. So I think these decisions did some difficulty to those, one who had the passport, who had to give it up, who had again to go through the system of application, and also the decision to basically open up your files was also one, I think, which was a difficult one but necessary one. And equally as a further safeguard, because security was a critical part. What the U.S. government was saying was that St. Kitts and Nevis, by the manner in which it was operating the program in 2014, had posed security threats to its people and citizens. And there was a long letter from Biden, I think it was at the time, to the then Prime Minister outlining the concern, and basically says there will be consequences unless alterations and changes were forthcoming. So you proceeded at your own risk. That was the sum of that letter. And so we came in and we had a challenging task. We had a program that had been sustaining much of the activities, much of the programs in the country, and it was suddenly had a very dark and gloomy future, and we had to do what was necessary. I want to thank the team who rallied in a sensible way to get us out of the woods. I want to thank the Attorney General because he was very helpful in coming along to explain some of the legalisms as it was surrounding the passport, their issuance, their revocation, and also to identify the sort of reforms, the new bits of legislation that we will bring to the program to help make it, as it were, more transparent and to give the assurance to the critical stakeholders.
Okay, so you set about reforming the program. Were those reforms successful?
I would say yes. Ultimately, it's in the results. And when we left office, we had the best program. Everybody knew about St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Program. Everybody knew that this was bringing a bonanza in terms of revenues. So the confidence had been restored. The market was responding positively to the changes that we had been made, and we were basically peaking at that particular moment in time. So if we look at the results, and that is always the answer to it, has it worked? Has it delivered what it was intended to do? And since 2014, to be clear, there had been no sanction, none whatsoever, against the CBI program over which I presided as Minister of Finance and Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Not one. In other words, we were able to work through every issue in a transparent way to the satisfaction of our international partners. Not one sanction after 2014.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the revenues of the program. How significant were those earnings to the country's economy? What projects, what social programs, what national developments were achieved because of this program?
I would say significantly. The CBI program provided such a large proportion of the country's revenue each year that without it, very little could have been done. And so when we look at the infrastructure development in which we had done such a marvelous job, the resurfacing of our island main road, our ability to do our homes, our ability to basically provide regular double salaries to the government employees, not only in St. Kitts but in Nevis, and beyond the government employees, the central government or the state corporations, the NHC, the ZIZ, the CFPC, all those entities enjoy the same benefits, not only those on St. Kitts, but those that were accountable to the Nevis Island administration. So almost any area you could think of, we were able to have the resources basically to develop a response to the hemodialysis services lack in that area and bring new services and support in that area. We were able, for example, in terms of the prevalence of cancer, to establish an oncology unit, and that was critically important. Cancer continues to be one of our major challenges in St. Kitts and Nevis and in the Caribbean. But we were able to advance that, bring specialists on board, train nurses, and all the works in relation to the care. And so in almost every area, the resources that were coming from the government revenue, as they are classified in the budget, were in large measure monies that had been taken out of the CBI program. But beyond those particular projects, and you could talk about, for example, we were able to build a magistrate court in Sandy Point, a police station in Sandy Point, a fire station, a justice, and national security complex, if you will. The resources, they were not grant funding, all came from the bonanza that we were experiencing from the CBI program. We were able to assist over 4,000 families after the hurricanes. The resources came from a hurricane relief fund that we had established. We were able to provide about $500 million in resources to the Nevis Island administration and the people of Nevis generally, not just through budgetary support, but other facilitations that we undertook on their behalf. So almost every sphere was being impacted by the benefits of the CBI program.
Dr. Harris, no program is without its criticism, and we know that under your administration there were significant criticisms surrounding the management of the program. Now, plans were announced for the construction of a new prison, a project that generated considerable public discussion and political criticism. What problem was your government seeking to address with that project?
With the
project.
The prison project?
Yes.
Well, simply, a little history. The prison that we now operate on the island of St. Kitts is called 1840 because it was in that year that it was developed and made available. It was intended then to house about 60 prisoners. The population over time had reached almost 400 prison inmates, especially in the period under the Douglas administration where there was so many homicides. In fact, in one of his budget address, he indicated that he intended to build a prison that would house over 400 prison inmates. And to his credit, in his own budget, I think I may have a copy of it, budget of 2012, he spelled out that he wanted to move on in paragraph, I think, 109. In 2012, he said, work on the prison will continue to focus on human resource development, the implementation of programs to promote skill development, etc. Moreover, the construction of a new correctional facility will commence, which upon completion will be able to accommodate approximately 300 prisoners. Never happened. And every year, if you look at the budget for address for 2013, 2014, you would see the number of prisoners they intended to house keep increasing because it was a natural, perhaps, reaction to the fact that the crime situation, the homicide situation in particular, was not getting any better. And so more persons would have to be housed. So I say that to say that in paragraph also 84 of his own budget, he said that as early as 2006, the government had identified safety and security as the focal sector to be financed, utilizing resources of the 10th EDF. And he went on to spell out some of what will happen, one of which was the construction of a prisoner rehabilitation sector. So across the government, and if you look at the PAM manifesto, you look at the Labour Party manifesto, all of them had promised a new prison because it was needed. And the state of overcrowding and the consequences for the spread of infection was seen as a major human rights violation. You go and you Google St. Kitts and Nevis Human Rights Report from the U.S. government, you will see it listed year after year. COVID came in 2020, and COVID magnified all that was lacking. Two of the largest outbreaks we had in relation to COVID-19 occurred in our prisons. And when we brought, as we did, meet weekly, the Commissioner of Prisons, Mr. James, in and asked how could this happen in such a repeated fashion, these significant number of persons being exposed, but not only them, not only the prisoners, but those who were there to guard them, those who were there cooking and doing a whole range of ancillary services were also exposed. And the gentleman said to us in his own moment of candor, our hands are tied because there really is no space. Sometimes we have over 10 persons in a cell. So once one catches it, it spread like wildfire to the prison system. And go back again to 1840. We are now talking, 100 and maybe 80 something years. Thereafter, 2026. So we are looking at perhaps 186 years after. We were dealing with a prison intended to house 60, but was now reaching well over 300 prisoners. That reality struck us. The human rights problem and reputation of our country was important for us to preserve at that particular moment in time, and I would say all the time, the country's reputation, because we must never be seen as a pariah nation. And so we knew that we had to move urgently to get a prison constructed, not only because we never know if another COVID may come, it might not be COVID, but it may be another fatal disease that would come and create this kind of problem for us to the spread and the contagion effect. And so we took a decision. We had to find a way. The way in which we came up was to use resources of the CBI program to allow us to be able to build the prison, since it would have been burdensome at that particular moment in time for the government to finance it. Recall, by 2020, the country and the world had basically closed down, no economic activity, little or no revenue coming in, because even the taxes, we basically provided relief. We cut that from 33% to about 25%, and incorporated business tax, we cut that by 50%, from 4 to 2%. Became that would allow the government to be able, we call it the alternative investment option. Hitherto, these were investment like Marriott, like other hotels, Ramada, where private party ended up being the beneficiary of the physical asset. The alternative investment program in which we pursued was to allow the government itself to be able to benefit from capital projects through the auspices, if you will, of the CBI program. And so we went through that part. That process went through all the usual workings, assessment, input. Ministry of Finance, the relevant other departments gave their input. Member of the cabinet approved this particular project. And I go further to say that while it was a unique way, it was necessary in the context of what I spelled out to you. One, the response to COVID, the human rights violation, the fact that we were doing an injustice in pursuing an extraordinary punitive arrangement that kept our people shackled in their cell, in a manner of speaking, cell with spatial accommodation for 60 was now doing over 5 times that. And that was an injustice that had to be corrected, and we were answering all of those. But we were also doing something else simultaneously, was to introduce a new product that will not only give us this particular important and necessary infrastructure, relieve some of the complaints we were having from an important, well, perhaps our most important partner, United States of America, regarding our human rights. And we know how sensitive that matter is around the world. But we were also in an era of rehabilitation. Those persons, people tend to think of them in the very pejorative way. They're prisoners, but they are human. They are human, and they deserve to be given an opportunity for rehabilitation so they can come out better equipped to act as persons who have been reformed as a result of being incarcerated. We had a new revenue platform that was going to come in, and it did come, because in the years after 2021, Dr. Jew was able to sign 99% of every certificate of registration to provide citizenship to those who had invested in that program. And it brought, therefore, huge revenues in 2022, the latter part, because given the cycle, usually would take about 6 months for money to begin coming from the time you would have started the project. You have to go through a series of due diligence internally, then send abroad, and you get the commercial suppliers of due diligence services to do their thing. They're going to Russia, they're going to China, and all those processes take time. And then as part of our own reform, we had said that we will send them off to the JRCC, which had the biggest criminal network available to us in the Caribbean. We pay for these services, and they were able then, as it were, to screen and to vet every applicant. We took the decision, whatever our internal processes said, this person is good. If at the end of that process, the JRCC said no, we will not issue an approval. So whenever there was some departure, it meant that that application would have then bypass, as it were, the very rigid screening mechanism that were in place. And that would have been an oddity if that were to happen. So we had a vetting process which was almost, nothing is perfect, but given the different layers, multi-layers of vetting was impregnable in terms of these things happening. So we did all that. We brought the money in. Dr. Jew inherited that, put his signature on them, and he was able to benefit from that flow of revenue in 2022 and 2023. Thereafter, everything plummeted. In other words, the last good project that they had was the very one that they criticized the most. Faith, dishonesty, hypocrisy, he signed them. And we only got an inkling of it when his own friend, Martinez, exposed that he had basically found out through his own inquiries that it was Dr. Jew who was signing them off responsible and remains responsible for the prison project. You can't, in opposition, say it is so bad, and then you go in government, you don't stop it. More than that, you take from it. He could have stopped it if it was that bad, that out of order. Why would you continue? But it wasn't. It was for them politics. Politics in the extreme, to the detriment of the country, to the detriment of the country's own reputation. They sullied the program. And further evidence, nothing was wrong with it. The very principle behind that project. He took to New York to United Nations General Assembly. The evidence was there, everywhere. She was there to be seen as part of his delegation. How incredible can people get with their tales?
Now, Dr. Harris, you spoke about the program plummeting. I think that's the word that you used.
Yes.
Now, there has been a lot of discussion surrounding the numbers declining, the numbers of applications declining. What do you believe the major factors are influencing the program today?
Well, there are several factors influencing the program. Generally, we have seen in the international community somewhat of a higher concern regarding matters of immigration. Who are those persons within our borders? Generally, they are non-national. So that kind of climate doesn't go well for the feeling of welcome for many if they were to go to certain countries. And I think that has been an important matter impacting Europe, impacting the United States of America. The real tragedy, though, is that we had an incompetent government. The real tragedy was that the government of the day did not understand the challenges that they face and how they were making it worse. They scandalized their main revenue earner. And repeatedly it was the worst thing. Yet they were harboring, they were taking the very proceeds of what they led people to believe falsely was some criminal enterprise. But yet you are signing to receive them. And you are scandalizing them to satisfy a political vendetta against your opponents. So the incompetence of that, when we got to government very early, sensible people advise us. And when you are in government, you have to have sensible people advising you, not them with political scores to settle, because often they lose sight of the real picture. How do we improve the quality of life of our people? And they said to us, you are now in government. I remember one budget I write in my speech. The financial secretary come and she said, Prime Minister, do not put it in the official document. Other people are going to be reading it. And if we are too critical, it will not help us. Because later they will use these very words to negative what we are doing and to bring pressure on us. I am almost certain the financial secretary would have said that to Dr. Joe. But he didn't appreciate it. The political agenda took priority over the national agenda, protecting what we have. And issues like that, the force problem, they went in, for example, they said that we were underselling. It was too low, so they took it up to $400,000. And then within a month, they went back, changed the regulations, gone back down, lower, to about 200,000 or thereabout. So, how could you be expected to be taken seriously when you appear not to know what you're doing? It's wherever the wind blow you will go. It doesn't work because people want certainty, especially when they are investing in a known environment. And St. Kitts and Nevis would be unknown to many of them. They don't come here. They are not our regular visitors. But you are sending mixed messages. So people can't invest. If today I'm told it's 400,000, well, if it goes down, it is something else. But if it were 200,000 and you just go and put it at 400,000, what is different about it? Nothing. Same passport investment. And we were having these backward and forward. At one point, they cancelled all the regulations and then put them back in a new regulation, they were attempting to confuse the public and ended up confusing themselves and confusing the market. Markets rely on certainty. And the absence of that certainty, you, as it were, making a mess of the environment for investment. So that is why I said the incompetence of the government, and some may say because the government operated on this vindictive approach to governance, which doesn't work in the end. Today, the harvest of that we are now seeing. How could you point to a successful program when the program is doing worse? It is the harvest of the crop that in the end determine the success. If you go to Keon and you take up 100 acres of land to do Tabasco pepper sauce, and up to now you can't bring no Tabasco pepper to the market, it is a failed project, in simple terms. So when they said they did all of these reforms, what was the purpose of the reforms? Was it to make the program more attractive to investors? Therefore, if it succeeded, we should have more applicants to our program, more revenue. Today we face with the reality. And even in their budget in December, they were faced to admit that the program was failing because the projected revenue was less than what they had done the year before. And in that year, I think they dropped almost 60%. And no explanation that they had destroyed the project. 4 years after, you have taken control. You said you could do better. You had all the knowledge. From whence it came, no one knows. But you profess to have had that. You had become an expert at that too. And now everything is going. Look at incompetence. In December, last time I had the report, here EU puts Caribbean citizenship visa-free access online. We have here the EU Commission report, 19 to 12 December 2025. We were going through the budgetary process. And the Prime Minister did not know or did not share this adverse report that had been there and did nothing after in relation to the calamity that we are now faced. What the people were saying was written clearly about these security risks. A section called Eastern Caribbean. And they talk about all these things they've been saying they are doing. And the core principles and this new regional approach. And so on. But nothing beneficial has come. Since the publication of the 7th VSM report, which is really the visa suspension mechanism, the total number of investor citizenship schemes, applications across the 5 countries has remained 13,113 in 2023, and it dropped to 10,573 in 2024. In St. Kitts and Nevis, 1,987 in 2023 to 220 card. He goes on to say, application numbers remain relatively stable in Dominica and St. Lucia. That is about the same. While Antigua and Barbuda recorded a notable increase. So in other words, the impact has not been uniform across similar countries within the OECS engaged in the program. And in 2023, to 1,000 733, more than double then, in 2024. Imagine we are reading this in an EU report. The budget was given. We never hear this information.
Now, Dr. Harris, we are almost out of time. But against the backdrop of that report, there are those who are of the view that the Citizenship by Investment Program is dead, not just here, but in the region. In your opinion, is the program dead? Can it be salvaged?
I think that it can be salvaged. I'm reminded of somewhere has not yet passed. And so, yes, we are in a depressive state. It is a necessary program. And I am more thinking along the lines of Gaston Bowne, that we must do all in our power to save it. For the very reason you outlined in the beginning, it is such an important part of what had made us where we are. The country that was the envy of almost all countries. The country that was able to satisfy social program, peace program, PAP to those who were vulnerable. The country that was able to support and give back to our public servants double salary after double salary. The country that had the highest fiscal buffer within the region was St. Kitts and Nevis. All of that then had depended upon our success with the CBI program. In 2014, we inherited that doom and gloom, that all was lost. But we were not overwhelmed by it. We put all that we had in it. We took the necessary measures. Some of them were hard and harsh. We took the necessary measures, engaged in agile diplomacy. I say agile diplomacy because when this report comes out in December, immediately somebody, our bodies, should have been moving. I saw a recent report and they're talking now. Thank God for Gaston, he brought it out. But his stock went up according to this report over the period under evaluation. But our Prime Minister gone mum. Not a word to us even yet. He has not what a clue. It is an overwhelming situation if you don't have the right frame, the right preparation, the right experience, and the right knowledge of diplomacy. And in all of these critical areas, he's found wanting. No fault of his, but a fault of the country, that is the leadership that we have. But in any event, Gaston has stepped forward. And then my good friend Comrade Skerrit in Dominica has now coordinated a recent meeting, and one of the things is we will go and engage in diplomacy. Is it coming too late? 6 months too late? What about? Did they inform Capital? Was the foreign minister apprised of the seriousness of this and its potential impact upon the market? We don't know. In that regard, having made reference, I would want to wish Dr. Douglas a speedy recovery as he deals with the after effects of the surgery. So we don't know. We don't even know what the Prime Minister knows. Because look what happened in the last couple of years. Turkey, in 2025, removed our visa-free access to its country. No one told us. I knew about it when some persons were in transit in London, couldn't get on board the plane to go to Turkey, and had all the inconveniences to deal with. They spoke with me. I spoke with our High Commissioner there, and he told me, and I said to him, but I never saw anything. How could an important country like Turkey in the context of Europe, dismiss, revoke our visa-free access, and the citizens are not told. And then we had the UK making its own changes, the ETA, etc. And then we have Ireland. But Ireland went very far. It was not just the holders of ordinary passports, but even diplomatic passport holder. It said, all of you now will have to apply to come there. And all of these things are happening. No alert is sounded. No activation of the diplomatic response for a country that relied upon it. For the record, the CBI program in St. Kitts has been contributing at a higher level to our economic growth and development here in St. Kitts and Nevis than it does in Antigua. The first one to speak out, to his credit, is Prime Minister Gaston Brown, the man whose economy is most reliant on it. And he knows it because he has been saying that with mischief in the past. Says nothing to us. We can't run our country like that. We need to rescue our country and put it in competent hands who knows how to manage not just the economy, but the society at large. That is what is absent right now in our country.
Dr. Harris, we are out of time. Do you have any final words for our listeners?
My final words would be one of hope that we can redeem our country because we have enough wisdom among us and among our community abroad. We have enough friends. When we were faced with this similar kind of challenge in 2014, we rose. We went about doing the work and we bring results. And we had a CBI program that was built back better than before. I believe, given a chance again, my government, my team, which will be an all-inclusive one, joined and talented people wherever they are for the contribution they can make, not to the party but to the country, would be able to address that. I see some of the lacks, and I've made reference to them. The agile diplomatic intervention had been absent. The failure to bring the rest of the country on board had been absent. You should have been somewhat of an all-of-society approach as we did in COVID, bringing in the stakeholders, asking for their input. But all is not lost. All is not lost in my having regard to the important position that this plays in our everyday life to ensure that we can redeem the times. I think a People's Labour Party government can redeem the times, and I ask for the confidence of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. We did it before, and I'm wiser now, and I'm sure I'm even more able to do better for this country that I love. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our guest, Dr. Timothy Harris, for joining us today. This has been the People's Choice right here on Freedom FM. Tune in next week, Tuesday.
For the people.